this edition of The Final Whistle on learmedia.tv. Our email is info@learmedia.tv. Good evening, Joe Waters, and welcome.
Good evening, Pat. Thank you.
Nice to see you again. Good evening, Chris Price, and welcome.
Thank you, Pat. Good evening to you and Joe.
They say a week is a long time in politics. I mean, we've been doing this for a while now, lads, the sports, and it never ceases to amaze me that any Monday night we're on here, there's something after happening that we didn't expect, Well, that we may not have expected. Like, for instance, a team that wins its first game in the Premiership and they sack the manager. No, Norwich. And Eddie has gone to Newcastle. Well, he'll have plenty coal in here for the winter, whatever about anything else. Eddie Howe, I don't know about that. Anyway, look, we just have a preview of that. Arsenal, West Ham, Man City, Southampton, Norwich, and Crystal Palace, they're all the winners in the Premiership. Joe, did you get to see any of the Premiership matches?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Of course, West Ham and Liverpool.
Yes, I saw that one.
And what do you think?
I thought West Ham played great. I really did. Their counter-attacking was absolutely fantastic. Their defending was great. But I still think Liverpool are just so prone to being caught down the right-hand side, down West Ham's left-hand side. And just so many opportunities come down that way. I think, Trent Alexander-Arnold, everybody talks about him. I mean, he is a fine player, but he's really not a defender.
No.
And for that third goal, or for the second goal, he was on the outside looking in, and they broke between the centre-back and the right-back, and where they ended up scoring the goal from. And then I believe, excuse me, on the third goal, Zuma got in front of him at the back post, if I'm not mistaken, and puts the header in for the third goal. So he scored a fine goal from the free kick, but if you look at it in terms of stats, that's 2-1 against, and you're not going to win many games like that if you're giving up 2 goals and only scoring the 1. As a player.
And after all, if you're a defender, your job primarily is to defend first, I would think. Chris, did you get to see a bit of that match?
I saw the West Ham Liverpool game. I thought it was an actually cracking game of football. Liverpool were not happy with some of the decisions that were made. They probably thought the first goal was an infringement on the goalkeeper. To me, it was the goalkeeper messed up. The ball hit his arm, went in, didn't come to punch. My old fellow would say years ago, when you jump, take your feet off the ground. He didn't do that, and that was why the goal went in. I think Cresswell he got the ball. I think Klopp probably felt he should have been sent off for the tackle on Henderson. It would have been a very harsh decision that early in the game to make. Notwithstanding that fouls can happen in the first minute and the 90th minute, but the fact is he got the ball and clearly went through and got the ball, and I don't think it would have been a very harsh sending off if that was the case. Liverpool played well in certain parts and certain times, but they couldn't contend with the fact that West Ham are a good team, and the funny thing about it was that the stadium was rocking. I mean, when West Ham went to the Olympic Stadium, the first year, they were actually thinking of going back to Upton Park because they just couldn't take to the place. But there seemed to be one hell of an atmosphere there yesterday. And I think West Ham are really playing good football, attractive football, and they're going to be hard to beat at home.
And Joe, when you look at the body language of Moyes and his team and players all around him, it's fantastic. It's very positive to me. And when you look at the body language of Solskjaer and the Man United team, it's obvious to me that over half the team are not even talking to him.
Well, I mean, just reading in the press now, they've started pointing fingers. Fernandez is out there and he's going, we're not getting enough information from the coaches and what this, that, and the other. There was a story about Graham Souness when he went to Liverpool from Middlesbrough, and
Yeah.
Joe Fagan was the first team coach there at the time, and on the game day, Souness said to Fagan, he says, "Well, Joe," he says, "what do you want me to do? How do you want me to play?" And Fagan looked at him and he said to him, he said, "Graham," he said, "we didn't pay all that money to tell you how to play. Just go out and do your job. You know what it is." And that's it. You know, go out and do your job. And I watched that Man United game. I mean, they had absolutely nothing in midfield United. They were just overrun completely. And City were just like, City would look like a wet rag all over them right from the very start.
Yeah.
And they suffocated them.
You're right, and it's not the scoreline, even though it's bad enough, Chris. It's not the scoreline, it's 2-0. As Roy Keane said on it's the manner of losing the match. You know, people lose matches all the time and win matches, but it's the manner, the shocking shambles that were Man United.
Yeah, there was two statistics that you'll take from the Man United game, which probably just emphasizes how poor Man United are, and that was that Man City had 68% possession, and that United only touched the ball 4 times in Man City's penalty area, which is the lowest ever since the guys that do the stats started nearly 20 years ago. And
Yeah.
I think those two statistics. I mean, if that, to be honest with you, if you looked at, I watched the second half in the car because the young lad had a soccer match on Saturday afternoon, and I watched the second half, and I honestly, it was like Muhammad Ali and probably, a rope-a-dope or whatever, in the 70s fighting a nobody. They were toying with them. I mean, Man City are not the most attractive team to watch going forward because they don't really have any strikers. They call what they say now the false nine, right? So they don't have an out-and-out striker. They've got forward players, but they're not strikers. I mean, if they had a striker of renown, they could have won. I mean, they could have won the match 6-7-0. They should have been 5 up at half time, apparently. So,
Yeah.
and then the second half, they were 2-0 up. They just, so whatever, lad, try and take the ball off us. And United didn't even bother. They kind of, I mean, again, it was just embarrassing to watch. And you kind of wonder, and this is the thing which the public opinion is beginning to turn here, right? When Arsenal fans wanted rid of Arsene Wenger, they just stopped going to the games. So everyone saw the empty seats at the Emirates. So what will actually happen here at United is that United fans will stop going. And then, okay, they may still have 75,000 season ticket holders, but it's the empty seats. Or at the moment, it's embarrassing to see the people leaving early. But what will happen if this continues is that the fans just won't turn up in the full, and that's it. You'll see 45, 50,000. Whether that happen or not, I'm not sure. But it's only when that will happen, and when the missing 25,000 aren't buying the merchandise, aren't buying the teas and coffees and burgers and chips and whatever, that's where the Stars will feel the pinch. That's what's going to happen.
And as I was saying, Joe, to Chris, I was down visiting my dad the weekend, and I got to see more sport than I would normally watch because that's all my dad watches now is sport, But I'm glad in a way. I saw a pretty long interview with Arteta. You remember the noise around him at the beginning of the season. He impressed me very much, not because of where they are now, but the way he speaks, the way he carries himself. He seems to be a very quiet, determined, positive guy. I'm delighted for him on a personal level. I hope he succeeds. Well, Arsenal, of course, under Wenger, never won the European Cup. Maybe Arteta might have a crack off it sometime. No. But I think Arsenal are quietly moving up and they could be a threat later on, Joe. I don't know what you think of that.
Oh, I believe so. I mean, he took it. We talked about it in one of the early shows, He took his lumps in the beginning, playing all the young guys and using them and keeping them there. And now it's bearing fruit. They've played through the rough parts of it. They play some great soccer, and they're getting their just rewards. And Mikel Arteta, how you described him there would be how I would have described him as a player. He was a very good player, very confident on the ball. He was good into the tackle, very, very calm, very tactically aware in the game. All the things that you'd look for. And, it's no surprise that Pep got him in as early as he possibly could once he retired. And then, of course, after a couple of years there with Pep, he goes and gets the job on his own. And I think that he's going to do a fantastic job there. I really do.
Yeah, and I like the style. Of course, Norwich, of course, sacked their manager after winning their first match. Look, I think that decision to sack him was already taken, obviously, before the match. And it didn't matter whether it was a win, lose, or draw. It looked a bit shabby to me, they could have waited till tomorrow or Wednesday, but anyway, that's the way it goes. I mean, they have a small budget. They're a small club, football club. I think they're on survival mode now for the Premiership, and they realise if they want to stay in it, they'll have to get more investment in. I don't know what's going on in the club, but I like Norwich. They're one of the traditionalists in soccer, I suppose, Chris. And there's also talk that Sterling is going to Barcelona. I was looking at the wires to say this morning across a few of the websites, and I don't know how true that is. He will be a loss, I suppose, to Man City, do you think?
Well, if that's true, then I think that Barcelona needs plenty of more Sterling, because they're apparently so short of money. So I don't know whether sorry, I couldn't resist that one. I think anybody who goes to Barcelona at this stage is I don't know what they're looking at there, because Barcelona are just I've no sympathy for them. I used to like Barcelona, but I think, to be honest with you, if you ran your household the way Barcelona run their household, you have your house repossessed. And Spanish football is a basket case, always has been. It wasn't long ago when Real Madrid sold their training ground to the government, and they basically promptly gave it back to them for 400 million, just to get 400 million off the government, and then they gave them the training ground back. So, it's and those two clubs control 90% of the TV revenue in Spain. So do not have any sympathy, and any player who goes to Barcelona in its current state, be careful what you wish for, because basically they're not going to go anywhere. I mean, they were 3-0 up the other day and they drew 3-3. That's what and Barcelona will not. I will probably state now that they're going to struggle to qualify for the European Cup next year.
Yeah, and of course, as Chris is saying, Joe, Barcelona and Madrid have such huge outgoings, such huge bills, that to be an utter disaster financially if they don't qualify for the knockout stage of the European Cup, because that's where the big bucks are,
Oh yeah, I mean that's a huge thing. But this seems to be a cycle with Barcelona. They do. Back in the 70s with Cruyff and Neeskens and those guys, and then with Rijkaard, they had a really good run, and then they kind of went off the boil, and then Pep came up and took over the team, and they were very fortunate that they had the likes of Xavi and Iniesta and Busquets. They got Busquets from, not Busquets, but Piqué from Man United, because he couldn't get in the Man United team.
Yeah.
And then you of course you have
was Figo with him?
You have Messi, and that all these good players came along at the same time, and they were fortunate that that they had them at that time, and that they had developed the way they wanted them to play, and they were very successful. And as they did that, they bought some really good players to fit around them. And now you're looking at it. I mean, the last 4 or 5 buys that they've made have all been bust. I mean, they've spent a fortune on players. The man from Liverpool that didn't work out for him. It's like, I mean, this is what's happened. They've spent this money thinking that they were going to be there forever and a day. And of course, it didn't happen for them. It hasn't happened. And yet, like Chris says, it's going to be a while before these guys come back.
Yeah,
And they need European Cup football.
Yes,
Because
they do.
that's where the big money is. I mean, they need. I mean, if they're not shown 6 times or whatever times a year on Spanish Street around the world or whatever, they're going to lose maybe 100 million. They need that 100 million. You know, I mean, there's talks of investment coming in from Qatar or whatever, but I mean that's basically going to be selling their soul because it is supposed to be a non-profit organization controlled by the members. Are they going to basically do something which is unthinkable in Barcelona history? You just want to know, are they going to do that?
yeah.
Well, they've already started doing that because they used to have UNICEF on the front of their shirts, and they used to pay UNICEF to have it on there. And now they've stopped doing that, and they're going for sponsorship. So the next logical step is going to be getting investment from one of the oil-rich countries.
Yeah.
You know.
That's right, and of course, over here in Britain, where Newcastle now, obviously, it's a done deal. Look, people have their own moral standpoint on people. It's business, it's money. They've made the decision. Now, what do you think, Eddie Howe, Chris, coming into Newcastle? He's coming in to Newcastle with huge check behind him, money. There's going to be money behind him now for a start. But as a manager, I think he's a right fit for Newcastle.
Gee, I don't think so. I think. I mean, first of all, he's got one hell of a job to keep these guys up, and that's his. I mean, irrespective of what happens in the January transfer market, it's what's going to happen up until May that's going to seal his fate. He's been given 2.5 years, but I would say the next 8 months will define his stay there. Newcastle are basically going to go down if they keep playing the way they are. It's as simple as that. They're not going to attract. They may attract mercenaries, but they're not going to attract people that are going to play for the club the way that you would hope for them to play the club. They may get good players coming in, but you know what I mean. If they see a sinking ship, they're just going to go. Because that's the way football goes, and here's the thing: Eddie Howe may not be there when it comes to April and May. I mean, he's not even Newcastle's first choice, and that's the problem he has. He's not the first choice. Newcastle went out with a statement last week and said that Unai Emery was going to take it. And he went, "Oh, lads, now hang on a second, you haven't spoken properly." And I mean, even he could see that this was just not the job for him. It's okay going in with. See, the problem that you have is this for Newcastle is this. It's okay going in with maybe 500 million, a billion or whatever, right? But they are not in the shape that they need to be to take on that level of investment. If they were a mid-table team, like say Everton, then you could say, well, these guys have got a chance. But the problem with Newcastle is that the playing staff that they have are so poor that there's only one way you can see for the rest of the season is that they're going to fight for relegation. And the only thing that might save them is that there's probably one or two teams in a worse state than them. So that's what might keep them up.
What do you think, Joe? He has it's a 2.5-year deal. I'd be more about emphasizing the half year, and then they might get 2 after that. But what do you think, Eddie Howe? It's an impossible job.
Well, I'm trying to look at this and see logically why they think Eddie Howe is going to be the guy to do the job. Yeah. I mean, he did well at Bournemouth, but eventually they got relegated. They play good football, but playing good football is not going to keep Newcastle in the Premier League right now. They need guys to tie on the metal helmets and get in the trenches and start earning points. Yes. And they don't have those kinds of players. It's all well and good coming in, but you are not going to come in and put right what's wrong at Newcastle. For a start, the fan base expectation is way beyond what he's experienced before. Sometimes Newcastle are delusional about how big they are. I mean, they get huge crowds, don't get me wrong, but there's not much else to do up there. And they go back to the glory days. It's always the glory days, and it's like, what have they done lately? I mean, it was Sir Bobby Robson and then Kevin Keegan did well for them, but they never won anything.
No, they're talking about the 30s and 40s, aren't they? Tom Finney and all that.
50s.
That's dreamland, really. And as I said,
Yeah.
look, Eddie Howe probably needed a job. I don't want to be disingenuous to him. I think he's a decent man himself on a personal level. I think really he's on a hiding to nothing. We wish Eddie well, but is Sterling so a done deal, lads, to Barcelona?
Don't know.
Why would he go? Why would he go there?
But where are they going to get the money from to buy him is the question.
Yeah.
They can't
his wages.
They can't afford to pay the light bill, not the mind to buy him. So it's
Luis Suarez is still scoring. He's scoring over the weekend, Louis, and is it what's the Atletico Madrid? No, who's he playing with? Luis Suarez, I saw him scoring.
Suarez, Atletico Madrid, yeah.
He did well.
Yeah.
He's been very consistent. He's coming to the end of his career now. I mean, I don't know. There's players like him. I'm not saying that Newcastle should be looking to get him. There's surely 5 or 6 players around the Premiership at the moment that might need to change for the rest of the season, and that might knuckle down and do a job for them.
He's too old. He's too old now. He's too old. He's in his early 30s. No one's going to take him anymore.
No, I suppose not.
He'll go back to Uruguay or Argentina. That's where they all end up in the end.
Well, at the moment, Sepp Blatter and Michel Platini, just none of the soccer news, have been indicted and charged with fraud at a court. They've been officially charged with fraud in Switzerland. Now, lads, this is going on for an awful long time, At this stage, when people hear about Sepp, we call him Septic Blatter here, Joe, all right? Septic Blatter and Michel Platini. I don't mind saying that because he deserves nothing else. Now, really, at this stage, this is going on for what? 11 years or something, 12 years? I mean, the fraud that they're being accused of and charged with, I think.
Yeah, but money, but the money is minuscule to what they've been paid.
The money is
over the years.
God, I shouldn't be joking about fraud, but it's shocking to carry on of it.
But it's only 1.6 million. If you're going to do fraud, do it for hundreds. Don't do it for.
If they're going to clean up soccer and FIFA are serious about this, then there was a film on last night or the night before, tomorrow night, about the way the World Cup was bought and paid for, the next World Cup in 2022 in Qatar. It was bought and paid for fraudulently, and they're trying to clean up the sport, and they're going to leave this go ahead, knowing that it was unfairly given to Qatar. Joe, what do you think of that? It brings the whole game into dispute by FIFA. You can't take them seriously.
Well, no, you can't. I mean, how can you turn around and say that, first of all, to give, well, the Russian one was bent as well. So let's be, it wasn't just Qatar, it was Russia as well that was crooked. And then you go and you give it to Qatar, where it's going to be the hottest it can possibly be. We thought it was bad when it had it in Mexico when it was so hot. Now you're going to here when it's the hottest time of the year there. And now, by the way, we've switched it and we're going to make it a winter World Cup so that it'll be cooler over there. And we'll interrupt all the seasons for all the other countries while it goes on.
Yeah. So they gave it to a country that has no soccer team, no soccer league running in it, and no stadiums. You couldn't make this up.
Well, they gave it to America in '94.
Well, America at least had some infrastructure. Even if there's only, America in '94 had the fledgling. Had they established the league that time, Joe?
It was only been established because of the World Cup, and the vast majority of the stadia were NFL. Stadium. Now, that's not into comparison. Please don't get me wrong, because I know where Joe's living. That's not trying to compare apples and oranges here. That's just the fact that it's not the only World Cup that has been given to a country that didn't have a recognized league. The problem is, was that this is a completely different scenario. This was where this one was bought and paid for in definitely off-colored envelopes. Simple as that.
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt about it. But we look forward. I don't know. We can look forward to the World Cup.
The only thing about the matches is this, right? It's winter. There's nothing really going to happen. So you're going to have 4 matches a day, played at probably 11, 1, 5-7 or 5-8 or whatever. So you'll be able to watch something because there'll be nothing else happening. The only problem that you have is that a lot of the leagues are given out because that November December time is very busy with Champions League and league and all that. So you're going to have a lot of those problems going on. But I mean, I looked at the calendar for the German league, and basically they're going to open up maybe 2 weeks earlier next year in August. And I think there's going to be like 6 matches played over the first 3 weeks, which the Germans don't normally do, play during the week. They actually call midweek matches English week. That's the nickname they give for it because it's an English thing. They don't like playing league matches during the week unless they really have to. So what they're going to do is they're going to cram a lot of these matches in. That's what's going to happen. And what's going to happen at the end of that? You're going to get injuries. You're going to get fellas who should be getting a break and not getting a break. And then you're going to have, because there's going to be an awful lot of matches played earlier in the year than what they're used to. It's a lot of important matches. Players are going to be basically flogged. Simple as that.
Well, I know some of the clubs have mentioned their star players, and we know star players, and that they may not give them permission to play in the World Cup. There's that hesitancy about them. Can you imagine after investing 100 million in a player? I mean, really, and there's a welfare issue as well, as you said, Joe. They've never been played under those conditions, apart from the White Irish in Orlando and Florida in 94.
Right.
In the 94 World Cup, where they were all sunburnt, Do you remember that?
In the middle of the day, yeah.
In the middle of the day. Just unbelievable. But they did.
There's nothing good going to come from it. And Chris is saying there that every league is, and not only every league, but just think of the things that you're going to have to deal with here. You're going to have the preliminary rounds of the Champions League that are going to have to be played now, probably in June, to get everything sorted. And then they're going to have to, and the same with the Europa League, and then the other Mickey Mouse one that they've got going right now. And then you're going to have to start pushing. And that means when you start pushing those dates forward like that are more back into the summer, that means that the guys are not even getting rested from the previous season. So there's nowhere for them to really get a real good rest in between. And then they're going to have to go and they're going to have to cram all these games in so that they get the playing rounds of the Champions League all finished up before they get to the end of when the World Cup is over. So when they come back, they can start into the knockout stages of it. And it's just going to be, it's going to be a mess. It's just going to be a mess for players. I mean, nobody ever thinks about what's right for the players, what's best for them. And it could end up with some guys just getting long-term injuries from it, which is going to happen. It has happened.
That's the danger. The Final Whistle is a program on media.tv. Tell all your friends about us and press the red button on the right-hand side to subscribe to our channel. And thanks to all the people who've done so. With Joe Wallace, Chris and myself here on the Final Whistle. Just briefly touch on rugby union. We had Ireland and Japan. Scotland beat Australia, didn't they? Over the weekend. And did Wales beat Samoa or someone like that, I think. I'm not too sure. But we were concentrating. Did you see any rugby, Joe, over the weekend?
I didn't see any of it, no, but I read some of the reports of it, and we were talking about it last week. It sounds like Ireland were just outstanding. That they played really well. For a change, they actually moved the ball around, which was a surprise to me, to be honest. But it was.
They were able to do it because they were playing a second-tier team. Let's face it, in Japan, I mean, Japan were very, very cool. Technically, they were.
But Pat, we weren't able to do it in the World Cup against them when they beat us.
That's true. We never got into the semi-final of the World Cup. Yes.
Yeah.
You're right. We didn't do it against Argentina in another World Cup. Do you remember that? And we had.
Yeah.
What did you think? Did you see any of it, Chris, or any highlights or anything?
I saw highlights of it. I mean, look, it is what it is. Let's be honest about it. I mean, it's very, very difficult over the last 2 years, especially when countries are coming from different, continents, the way things are going to kind of rate them. I mean, I think Japan have only had 4 matches since
Yeah.
the last World Cup. So you mean you have to take that with a grain of salt. You know, the big match is going to be New Zealand on Saturday. Now, I'm wondering how Pat Barry is going to react to this match on Saturday night, because I think if Ireland are going to get beaten, he's going to look for Andy Farrell's head anyway, right? But then again, if every coach lost to New Zealand, there'd be a new manager in rugby circles every 2 weeks. So I mean, you got, you know, while don't be chewing your lips now. In fairness, okay, the point of the matter is this: is that while New Zealand are the bench, they're playing phenomenal stuff at the moment, and I do think that, you know, if I'm not expecting, I mean, I saw Bernard Jackman come out and said Ireland's going to beat them. Look, to be honest with you, I think if Ireland get within 15 points of this current New Zealand team, they'd be doing well. And I mean, and that is in all seriousness, because they do look like a phenomenally, you know, well drilled team at this moment.
Yeah,
And
after
that's the way they play.
After the show, you could send an email to Andy Farrell, Chris, if you like, and
No,
please,
not on your behalf. No.
please ask him, what is the point in bringing on 3 players with 5 minutes to go in a match? I don't see the point.
That happens in all sports. I mean, I agree with you, Pat. I mean, sometimes managers and the problem is that's because certain managers in certain sports hands out caps like confetti at a wedding. That's the problem.
Before we get to you, Joe, you're saying to me, Chris, that Johnny Sexton is the future for Ireland. He's going to bring us all the way to the semi-final World Cup.
No.
Andy Farrell says it is.
But you look, he wouldn't be the first Irish coach to get it wrong in a World Cup.
I know, yeah. Joe, the All
Look,
Black.
I think before Joe, and I think before I let Joe, and Joe can have a nice lengthy go here in a second. I think the biggest problem you have to worry about Johnny Sexton is that the guy has had an awful lot of concussion injuries over the last couple of years, and if he's questioned on it, he gets very defensive. Now, even my wife now, who'll be more rugby fanatic than me because of where her mother came from, she said, I see he's declared himself fit. Now, as far as I mean, Joe, as a professional athlete, would always say that the coaches or the trainers would declare the athlete fit, not the athlete declaring himself fit. And I find that strange. And she said to me, what's he doing? I mean, the fact is that he is one concussion away from retiring, in my opinion. He gets very defensive about it. And I think that's the problem that you have at 38. He doesn't tackle the way he tackles very high. He kind of gets the head collisions. And, you know, anybody who these days who gets even a slight touch in the head is at least gone for 10 minutes. That's the way it's going.
And Joe, do you give Ireland any chance against the All Blacks? We must remember the All Blacks have played an awful lot of games. Of course, it's 120 quid to go in to see them, Joe. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's I
was
reading that.
No,
I was reading that in the paper this morning.
The IRFU don't want the army people to go in to see them. They're above that. Isn't that right, Joe?
Yeah, well, yeah. God be with the day when Munster beat the All Blacks in Tooman Park back in the day. I don't think it was 150 quid to get in that day. That's it for sure. But yeah, no, I mean, international sport has gone to a ridiculous place in terms of cost to get in and see a game now. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It is.
I don't know where you stop with it. You know, no, I don't know where it's going to stop.
If the IRFU were serious about promoting rugby in schools and with kids in the new generation, there'd be hundreds and hundreds of schoolboy tickets available to see the best team ever to play rugby, the best team in the world. Surely that would be a case in point. There's enough sponsorship around, enough money around to pay their expenses, for God's sake, instead of penalising people who would love to see. It's not often we see the All Blacks, you know. Where would a young lad go to see them apart from television? I mean, it's an ideal position, and I don't know why they don't do it. Chris, what do you think? 120 quid?
Well, I heard it was 145. But I mean, I was listening to it the other day when the Welsh, when they played New Zealand, it was £100 flat line the cheapest ticket, £100 to see them last week. And one sports commentator says, well, the organisations have had no money for 2 years. And the guy who was on says, well, no, have the fans. The fans have been on have been on either furlough or something like that for the last 2 years. Now, how you stop it is basically by people not going. But then again, the old problem is that if you don't go, someone's going to take your place.
That's true. That's true. But as Joe said, I mean, it's an ideal showcase to me. It's just like bringing Brazil, the great Brazilian team of the 1970s over, Or was it Tin Bob North to see them or something like that? But you were able to bring your young lad to see. But I mean, really, I think it's terrible myself. But
it's well, see, the problem, and this is you're going to go down a different conversation now, and this all stems from the fact that organizations like in rugby, like in cricket, like in soccer, have gone away from terrestrial television and onto subscription paywall for television. I mean, they actually said that in cricket in England, that the playing public has gone down by 50% over the last 20 years because there's no cricket on terrestrial TV, and it's only some sports now have decided to actually ditch the likes of Sky because they need to get membership. The thing is, if no one's playing their games, they don't have any lifeblood.
And Joe, rugby isn't big in America, is it? In the United States?
I mean, it's not as big, as it is at home and what have you. But it is big. I mean, there's a league up here in the Northwest that Tacoma and Seattle play in, Vancouver.
Yeah.
A lot of colleges play rugby. A lot of colleges have women's rugby. So the sport is getting bigger and bigger all the time. And it's becoming real popular. But it's not, it's not what it was before. But, again, you go back to it and you're looking at, I mean, how many parents are going to let their kids play rugby when they're looking at the size difference in some of these kids? And just talking about Johnny Sexton there, I mean, 5 or 6 concussions. I mean, he should be retired by now. What the IRFU is doing, letting him play. Yeah. I mean, he is one hit away from being
paralyzed.
Yeah, I mean, he could be brain dead, but with another hit. And we've seen it in American football with it happening. We have a thing now over here called the Leicester law, which is Zachary Leicester was a kid that was playing American football. He got whacked. He got a concussion, and they put him back into the game before he recovered. And he went back in. He got hit again, and the kid is he cannot walk properly. He cannot talk. He's severely handicapped from the whole thing. So I mean, we're playing with people's lives here, and I don't. At some point, somebody has got to call time on that.
I'm not familiar now. I don't know what the protocol is. Actually, I had an interview during the week with Professor Jack Anderson from Melbourne University, and we're going to get clips out of it for one of our shows. He's head of sports law and all of that in Melbourne University. He's done a load of books on the law of sport and incidents and all. He's an expert on it, world expert. So we're going to have him on the show someone tonight anyway. We can, I suppose, get into the whole, what are the protocols for the concussion and all of that, and how long must you stay out and all. I don't know what they are myself off the top of my head, but it is a worrying thing, all right, because by God, 20 stone hitting you and you're tackling a person who's 20 stone athlete running at you, I'd be going the other way myself, I'd fall down. Do you remember, do you remember Jonah Lono?
Yeah.
He was huge. Remember? I'll always remember the try he got against England when he walked over 4 players, literally walked over 4 players and touchdown. I mean, that was phenomenal altogether. We look forward to the All Blacks, I suppose, coming to Ireland. They'll be playing Ireland on Saturday. Actually, by the way, before we leave rugby, South Africa, beat Wales, but it was a very tight match. They only beat them in the last 15 minutes. Wales put up a good show, despite their injuries. So South Africa, I know what they were in the second or third gear. I only saw the scores, so I don't know how well they played.
I watched most of the game, Pat. It was a very good game. It was actually overshadowed by one instance where, as Wales were going for a try, a fan came onto the field and nearly tackled one of the Welsh guys, only for a steward who actually, but we don't even know whether the guy was Welsh, South African, or just pissed. We just don't know. That it was just he just came out of nowhere. I must have been. I don't know. It was. I mean, I know that if you do that in Australia, I remember years ago that if you actually go onto a pitch in Australia, you get a $5,000 fine. You're given probably 30 days in jail, and you're banned from the arena for life, right? But they don't take that. See, they don't take that thing seriously here. You see, but they should, because you don't know, that guy could have easily had a knife.
And it wasn't a sweeper.
Well, he did it for a bet of 20 quid.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was 10 or 20 quid, something ridiculous for him to go on and do
have you
that.
Have you ever been to Cardiff on a wet November night? Of course he had his clothes on, Pat.
Yeah.
As you're talking about mad instance, do you remember the priest from Kerry who disrupted the Olympic marathon? Do you remember that?
He's dangerous. He did it. He did the very same in a Formula One track one day. Ran across the race.
Formula One race as well,
Yeah, he was just he was from Scartaglen in Kerry. He was just Niall Horn. His name was. He was an absolute.
Father Horn, yeah.
He was an absolute mind.
Well, South Africa, I always liked South African rugby. I always liked them. I don't know. I just loved their Australia and South Africa. Apart from my two favorite teams, watching them.
Well, Australia going down. They're not. They don't have the players.
They're not the fourth.
And plus, COVID has cost them a fortune. So they're nearly going to like a semi-professional, the way things are going. South Africa are they're playing a type of rugby that's not attractive. People will criticize me for saying it. It's a bit like Munster, up the jumper, try and, they don't spread it wide. They don't try to create chances. I mean, when I watched it, the first try came when it was like 18-15, and it was all penalties. Like there was what, 11 penalties hit before there was a try. So I mean, it wasn't.
Oh, really?
While it was a good, decent game, it was because Wales tried to play. South Africa tried not to.
Did the try come in the second half?
Yeah, late.
Goodness me. No score from play. Goodness, all penalties.
Most, yeah. I mean, yeah. And look, but that's the way. I think they got 2 tries in the end. I can't remember, but that's the way that South Africa are playing the game. They did the same in the Lions Test matches. They'll just basically plod you to death. That's what they'll do.
Well, they're a good team. I'm supposed to be up there with the best.
They're world champions. I mean, you can't take it away from them. But it's just, they're not a team that you'll pay €145 to watch.
Well, there's no team I'd pay that much to watch. I don't care who they are. I just would not pay that kind of money. I'd hardly pay. Maybe if Elvis came back from the dead and was performing in Thomond Park, maybe, I don't know, in his white suit, I might go to see him, but not a rugby team. They could. As I went to the last time I went to Thomond Park, I hardly saw any of the game because it was a pouring rain the same night, and all the action was in the wrong side of the field for me on both halves. We're too far away.
I'll tell you a story. This is true about yeah. This is true now. Joe now will be in this. I was in Vancouver 10 years ago. My brother was living in Vancouver for 2 years, and we went to see an ice hockey match in the Rogers Arena in Vancouver. And this was the year after they had got to the Stanley Cup final, so they were still a decent team with the Sundin twins and all that. And we got the Sky train back to where my brother lived. Right now, I got tickets. I bought tickets online here for I think they were about $90. Right, and sure, I was up in the nosebleeds. They call them the bleachers, the nosebleeds. Right at the top. You needed binoculars to see it.
Yeah.
And I met a guy in the SkyTrain, and we're talking, where you from, Ireland, blah blah blah. Why you go to the match? I did, yeah, yeah. He showed me his ticket, $400.
Oh, Jesus.
And I didn't know whether to laugh or have. So I says, "Do you pay that every day?" He says, "I do." I says, "There's 41 home matches a season." I know, he says. And I was just gobsmacked. And I
Did
thought,
you
"You're paying
play
$400 per match." He went, "Yeah."
CS, a nice hockey match?
Yep.
Goodness me. Of course, ice
That's,
hockey.
I mean, it's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
ice hockey is huge, especially in Canada.
Yep.
I mean, that's practically their national sport. I think if it's not, I mean, I went to see. We were playing a game in the Coliseum in LA back in the 80s,
Yeah.
and Los Angeles were playing before the night before, and they had Tiger Williams and all those guys. I think Gretzky was playing for them back then, and you know, we got tickets for free from the owner, but yeah, but the place was I mean, the place is packed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen it. Eurosport here on this side do take ice hockey games, you know. It's really, really so fast.
Great game.
Oh God, I'd love to see one live, all right, John. It's not the
It's a great
same as television, you know.
To be honest with you, but the funny thing about it was this: is that I mean, I like my sport, right? And I'd be engrossed in the match because I think if you're paying that kind of money, you want to, you know, look at it. But do you know what? All around me, there was people doing their knitting, they were reading books, and I'm going, what are you here for? You could do that at home. I mean, there was two women have a conversation about their kids, and they weren't even watching the game. I'm going, who paid for these tickets, lads? You know what I mean? It to me, it just was strange. It was like it was a social event without actually watching the social event that's there for in the first place.
It's like I suppose baseball and NFL and basketball are big sports in America, Joe. I'd say they would they? NFL, basketball, and
Well, I mean, the NFL, yeah, I mean, for sure. But, you know, baseball, I've been to a number of baseball games. We were playing in St. Louis, and we went to Busch Stadium to watch St. Louis play. Forget who it was now, back in the days back then. It was an afternoon game. And we happened to be there. We had 4 or 5 days. It wasn't worth us going back home because the cost of the tickets to go back out. So we were in Kansas City, and we went over, took the bus over, and we were there and we watched it. And it was one of those where we went, okay, we're not drinking, or we'll have a beer every time they score a home run. Well, there was no.
I have an idea where it is going.
no home run.
So then it was like, well, every time they get a hit, okay, that didn't happen. There was nobody hitting the ball. And then it got that right. Every time the pitcher throws a pitch, we'll have a beer. That's it. It got to be like that. You know?
You need an excuse to have a beer.
Yeah. So, but I mean, sometimes baseball can be a great game. But then other times when it becomes a pitching duel, it can be, if you're not really into the nuances of the game, you know, it can be pretty boring for a person that doesn't really understand it.
The problem is, Joe, they play too many matches. I mean, they play 162 games a year, which is way too many. So, they play, and they do it over a 6-month period. So, I mean, you have to play from the 1st of April to the end of September.
Right.
162 games in 183 days. You only have 19 days off.
I knew nothing about baseball, or very little, I should say. But I'd recommend the film for anyone who wants to know the rudimentary rules and how the technical side of it, for the want of a better word. And that's a film made a couple of years back now, based on a true story, a book, Moneyball. Moneyball is the name of the film. It's superb. And your man is in it, Brad Pitt. And Jonah Hill. I think that, you know, Jonah was in that film there recently. But anyway, it's a fantastic
it's all
film.
on statistics. All those guys are on statistics. That's how and they're trying to do that into soccer. And they're trying to do that. But they're trying to do it in, I mean, you I try not to get technical. If you get between a certain limit where they think your stats are really, really high. And if you can maintain that, then they'll pay you whatever you want. That's what they do.
And before we finish up tonight, Formula One, Max Verstappen won again in Mexico City, and Hamilton was second, and Perez was third.
Again, I was forced to watch that last night.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
He's 19 points ahead now, Max Verstappen, just 25 points for a win. So there's only four races left. Is it four?
4 races in the next 5 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could easily come down to someone being forced off the track.
Well, I was hoping that Hamilton would win his 7th title.
He's already won 7, Joe. Oh, Pat. He's already won 7.
Or the next 8, was he go ahead of everybody? Was he?
Yeah, but do you really want that with him? God, he's so insufferable.
Well, no, I think for consist. Oh yeah, as well. No, on a personal level, he wouldn't be my cup of tea. But
he's insufferable. He's insufferable. He just, if you ever, and the only good thing I would say about the Formula One coverage is that you actually hear sometimes the talk between the driver and the engineers. I mean, honestly, sometimes, for what he says, he'll be brought up again on HR in any other company.
Now we look forward to, we didn't get a chance to mention, I didn't get any chance because I was too busy the weekend to see any of the NFL games. So I don't know who won and lost. You'd have to look that up yourselves, lads, all the NFL games. Was there any local one on, Joe, the weekend around you?
No. Seahawks had a bye this weekend, so I didn't I didn't watch it. But our boys, Tree United, had a
Treaty United were beaten 3-0 at home in the playoff here in the first division playoff. They went to the return leg and they brought it back to 3-2.
They did?
Oh, they brought it back to 3-2, and they were really, really pressing. It was all out, to get, and then they gave away a silly goal. And just out of their reach, but they did extremely well. Galway United were very, very, very unlucky. They were beaten by Bray Wanderers. So Bray Wanderers are in the final against UCD. One of those will go up to the Premiership. But there's also talk going on between Bray Wanderers and Cabinteely to coalesce, to come together to form the one club. That's Cabinteely and Bray Wanderers, because Bray have a very small playing base. And Cabinteely are being squeezed, like with Bowes, St. Pat, Shelburne gone up now, and all those. So, and Shamrock Rovers, of course. So I can see the logic in that. I can see that. I don't know will it happen or not. But we wish Treaty well. They're well set up for next year, and hopefully next year there'll be a lot more fans able to come out to them. But they did very well. They did very well, Joe. And I thought it was very good. But there you go. That's soccer for you. They had too much to do. The home match, I think, got on top of them. The emotion with over 3,000 people at their home game, full house, Marcus Field. I think as a young team, I think that may have affected them somewhat. It took them an awful long time to get into the game, the first one, and they were, you can be 2 or 3 goals down in a soccer match very quickly if your head isn't in the right place, and there's no way back then. But we congratulate them. They did very well. Their first year in senior soccer,
Oh, they did great.
So tell all your friends about us, lads, that we're here every Monday night, and I think we'll wind it up tonight. We wish Ireland well. We wish Andy Farrell and the Irish rugby team, Chris, despite what we made. And whoever he may be, I know we wish them well next Saturday. I hope they'll be able to compete. That's all we hope for with an Irish rugby team, that they'll be able to compete. But anyway, their history is against them, but they often overcame history. So from Chris Price, from Joe Waters in Seattle, Joe, it's been a blast again. Until we meet again, lads, from this edition of The Final Whistle, take care and goodbye now.
See you later, Pap. See you later.
Right, take care, lads.
Bye.
Bye-bye.